Good afternoon, everybody. We are about to get started with this room. Let me just wait for some of our panelists to come in. Excited to have this conversation about debt management, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you are in debt or know somebody who could benefit from some debt elimination strategies, ping them. And if you have any questions, make sure that you share them here in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and add some topics to the top of the room and invite some people in. You are visiting us under the Amigos Club. We are the largest Latinx club on Clubhouse, and we welcome you today. So give me a couple of seconds. I'm going to go ahead and invite some people in. And in the meantime, please, tell us on the chat where you're connecting from. Give me a sec. All right, I'm just inviting some people in. I'm going to wait for some of the panelists to come in. And I want to welcome Maru, Michael, and Adri, and the rest, Lorena, for joining us today. So can you chime in where you're connecting from? I am connecting currently from Houston, Texas, from the area of Spring, and just a little bit of information about myself. I am in the financial space. I've been in the financial space for now over 15 years. And since April is Financial Awareness Month, we are holding some spaces pretty much every other day on different topics about personal finance. So if you have any question regarding the topic of today, definitely make sure that you chime in, you drop it on the chat. And let me go ahead and add some more topics, and we'll get started in just a second. Hey, Susie, how are you?
Hey, Jorge. Sorry I'm a little late. Had a call that just ended. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, and no worries. Let me just add some topics. Hey, Anna, great seeing you.
Hey.
Quick second. Let me go ahead and we can invite some more people in. I'm going to go ahead and add some topics to the room, and we'll get started in just about 2 minutes.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to share the room to people you know, you can share it on out there. And if you already have some questions or thoughts or ideas about debt management, feel free to start dropping them in the chat. Would love to hear from you.
All right. I see some people coming in. So for the people who are joining us, Susie, where are you connecting from? And also you, Anna, where are you connecting from today?
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale. Beautiful Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
I'm coming from Durham, North Carolina. I couldn't unmute because I was in the middle of sharing the room. So apparently you have to finish that before you can come back. But I am in beautiful North Carolina.
And is that where you live, Susie, or are you in the process of moving to Texas?
So I was lucky enough to be in Texas a week ago for a week in Austin, but that was because the life coach school that I was certified by had a mastermind, basically like a 2 day extravaganza where we got to get lots of coaching and training. And so my husband and I went a few extra days. So it was so fun because I'd never really been to Texas, neither had he. And I fell in love with Austin, I'm not gonna lie. But I am happily settled here in Durham, and I am originally from San Diego, California.
Well, I can tell you that living 22 years in Miami, Florida. I lived in Philly for about 5 years, moved down 22 years in Miami, and we came to Texas with our eyes set in Austin. And, we love Austin, especially the west side of it, Hill Country. But we ended up staying here in the Spring, Houston area. But you never know. Eventually, we'll make our way down to Austin. So anyway, with that said, I want to welcome everybody down in the audience. If you have a question, if you want to chime in, if you've dealt with, figure out a way to get rid of debt, definitely we'd love to hear your story. And I'll begin with telling you a little bit about my story with debt. So when I moved down from Philly down to Miami, I went to school at Florida International University. And when I arrived, I was outside of the library. Uh, one day I found two tables, and there were two companies giving out hats, t-shirts, coffee mugs, and that's the first time that I actually got introduced to credit cards. And I walked away with two credit cards, super proud of myself because I thought, wow, these large financial institutions deem me as a responsible adult, and now I have access to credit. So great. I was super happy about it until I realized that I had immediate access to credit, but I had no idea how to manage the use of credit. And so, fast forward, I was an international student. I ended up covering most of my expenses, even though I was working. And by the time I had graduated, I had over $46,000 in total debt. Now, picture somebody who recently graduated with that amount of debt. And yeah, now we hear about all these mortgage-sized loans when people graduate. But for me at that point was, even though I was working while I was going to school, that was a lot of debt for me. And so learning how to deal with it and learning how to get away from it, how to eliminate it was a struggle. It was adjusting the mindset, shifting some habits, and yeah. So now, with 15 years in the industry, I now coach some people on different strategies that they can implement to get out of debt. So that's a little bit of my experience with debt. And now, how about you, Susie and Anna? What is your experience with tackling debt management?
Sure. So my name's Susie Castellanos, and I'm an empowerment coach. And my experience with debt happened really in graduate school. So I come from poverty. We were on lots of benefits from the government. So it was one of those things that I knew that once I was 18, I was no longer going to have any kind of safety net or support. So, I went to undergrad, I had a full ride. I worked my butt off. I was somebody who worked under the table since I was about 8 or 9, washing dishes at the taqueria across the street. And so I wasn't getting in debt. I was really careful. I did have debt for college, but it was all very good debt. I had what was then called Perkins student loans for people who are very poor without adding, I guess it was subsidized interest. So they don't add the interest until after you finish. But then when I went to graduate school, I did have fellowships and scholarships and things like that. But I went away to Rhode Island from California. And there was just a lot more expenses that I hadn't thought about. I needed a whole new winter wardrobe. I needed to be able to travel back and forth to visit my family because I missed my grandmother and she missed me and things like that. She's the one that raised me. So over time, little by little, I started accumulating credit card debt when I was in grad school. And then the thing that really pushed me over was when she died, like 3 months before I was going to complete my PhD. My sister, my brother and I, we didn't have like saved money for any of that. So basically, I had to pay on my credit card for all sorts of things. Then I went into my new job and I hadn't gotten paid yet. So I put stuff on the credit card in order to pay for first and last month's deposit, etc. And I didn't have health insurance yet. And just so that's how life went. I wasn't being irresponsible. I was just really trying to take care of things where I did not have a safety net and I didn't have an income. Um, and so that's my story. And then over time, we can talk about the rest of the story of how we paid that off, but I'll just leave you with that. Anna, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Susie. You know, I've lived a long time and debt comes and goes. The thing is to have some sort of, like with everything else, you just have to really have some sort of discipline. There are going to be tough times, and when that happens, good credit is a wonderful thing because you can go ahead and get what you need. But then once things are better, it's a matter of the discipline of don't take that huge vacation, don't do something extravagant. Pay that damn debt off, and have the discipline to not do anything else but get rid of that debt and then do the things that you really want to do. But just it's there. It's there for you. That ability to lean on your credit and have a breather and keep your life going. And then as soon as things get better, pay it off. And then also, I always have one source, one bucket of money that is just to blow it off. It's to get my nails done, to go to a fancy restaurant if I want to buy another pair of shoes, whatever it is, that is my fun money. And no matter what is going on, I have that account that is just for cualquier lujo, whatever is going to rock my boat that week or that month. And that's very important because a whole reward system is really important to keep yourself sane. So I think people have to stop beating themselves up about that because it's there for a reason. There's a reason why that exists. But again, just enforce some mode of discipline with your expenses and paying that back off.
I agree with you, Anna. And I posed the question: all debt bad? And no, I don't think that all debt is bad, but I do think that out of all the threats to your financial security, none is more dangerous than debt. In every family's quest to feel good financially, debt is like the most common enemy. How many times have we, I mean, I've personally walked into a home where a couple, they're about to get married, but one or the other has a hidden credit card that the other person doesn't know about. Well, that's dangerous, especially when you're not ready to talk about it and tackle it. So the very fact that it's so common, who doesn't have debt? Like everybody has debt at some point. So it makes it one of the biggest threats when it comes to your financial well-being. I think I mentioned in another room that there's an actual link. The number one cause, one of the number one causes of heart disease in the U.S. is stress, and one.
Jorge, we can't hear you. Can you hear him, Anna?
No, but I think he has trouble staying still.
Well, I'll pick up from you, Jorge. Come back in when you get your miking okay.
Hello, hello.
I do. Oh, there you are. Now I can hear
Hey,
you.
there you go. Sorry about that. This happens to me often. I get a call, and then the mic doesn't get reactivated for some time here in the room. So, yeah. So no, I was just saying that money is one of the main causes of stress. Stress is one of the main causes uh, of heart issues. So there is a tangible connection between being able to handle our money and, in particular, our debt and our financial and our physical well-being. There is an actual connection there. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. I will say that yeah, one of the big things is when we don't tell the truth to ourselves about what's really going on because we're scared. And sometimes it can be very scary when, for whatever reason, life gets you to the point where you end up having a lot of debt and the debt is coming due. Now, I do, to answer the question you posted in there, is all debt bad? Um, I believe that debt is a really good thing because it allows us to have things that we couldn't otherwise buy. A mortgage is awesome. A car loan is awesome if you don't have your 25,000 or $30,000 in hand and you kind of need a car to get to your job. I think school loans, if it's not the kind of like the for-profit schools where they're gouging you and you're not getting a valuable thing, if you're going to a really getting a useful education and you get some loans and they're low interest, awesome. So there's a lot of things where debt is okay because you're getting some value that's greater in return um, than for the money and for the interest that you're paying. The challenge becomes if you do accumulate debt that you're not getting any value from. And I know a lot of times people talk about credit card debt that way. Um, Unfortunately, sometimes we do get into credit card debt for good reasons. Like I feel like my reasons for being in credit card debt were good. I know sometimes people will get into credit card debt because there's a sudden illness in the family. And unfortunately, I do think like this is something that's important when we think about working class people or poor people. There's not a lot of safety net for them, for people like that, and they might have to get payday checking loans, and then they're paying all this interest, etc. Um, but I think the key thing is as long as you're not wasting money on things that give you no intrinsic value, sometimes you are going to get in debt because the things that you get in debt for matter. But, you know, that is kind of my perspective on it, that sometimes you are going to possibly get into credit card debt, and it's important that you did that. Like, I got to pay for my mother's funeral, my grandmother's funeral. I got to fly to see her. I got to do all those things. So I'll pass it back to you, Jorge.
Yeah, it's thank you for sharing. And when it comes to paying off debt, here's one thing that I tell people: what happens when Black Friday comes along? Black Friday, everybody goes crazy because they need the new big TV because the big game is coming for Super Bowl, and uh, people kind of forget temporarily that they may not be in the best shape financially, right? And so what ends up happening is people are not aware that compounding interest, when it works in your favor through investing, that's an amazing, powerful, positive force. But the bad news is that compounding interest, when applied on the negative side through debt, through credit card, that has a devastating effect on our financial future and stability. For example, if somebody goes out and makes a one-time purchase of $3,000 and they put it on a credit card, and that credit card has, I don't know, an 18% rate of return, if they don't have any new purchases on that credit card, and all they do is make the minimum payments, it will take that person about 10 years to pay that off, and they would end up paying more than $2,000 in interest. So, yeah, it's very attractive the fact that we have easy access to credit to have a better quality of life. But when you're sustaining your quality of life through credit and you're not managing it properly, it can be devastating because now you find yourself working to pay the man, working to pay the credit card company. That's definitely not the right way to go about it. And to go to your point, Susie, yeah, especially people that have, uh, lower incomes, it they may depend more on programs and credit, and but it doesn't matter how much you earn. You can always set something aside. If you can set $1 aside, build that habit, exercise that muscle until you can build up enough cash reserves to pay for some things in cash. So yeah, that's what I just wanted to share a little bit about the compounding effect of having credit card debt. Now, Anna, what do you think about the use of credit cards? Do you think that use of credit cards is all bad, or can they be also a good tool to utilize?
I think they're wonderful, but you have to realize that it has to get paid off. You know, you just can't be relying on that and get into that situation that you just described where it takes you 10 years to pay something off. That's the same as with student loans. You know, I still get calls saying, "Oh, we're going to forgive your student loans." And I said, "I paid those off 20 years ago. What the hell?" You know? Um, there you have to give yourself timelines to get rid of things. And if not, if you can't do it, don't do it. You know, and or like what I love to do, if there's something I want, I like to give myself whatever I want, whatever I feel like. But you know what? I don't do it until I have it. If there's something that I want that's going to be 500, 5,000, 50,000, it doesn't matter what the amount is. I have to earn it. When I have it, I can have it in the bank. I can have whatever I want. And that keeps me honest. That keeps me honest and it keeps me fluid, you know, because having that debt where you cannot breathe, and if some emergency comes up, there's nothing there, you know, that, and that's another conversation for another day, I guess, is to have a reserve for when the unexpected happens. You know, you need to be covered. Back to you, Jorge.
Yeah, and to your point, Anna, the unexpected, you can expect the unexpected to show up sooner rather than later. So if you don't plan for it, you're going to be digging a bigger hole. And with that, Carmen, thank you for coming up on stage. What's going on? Tell us, what do you think about this topic of debt?
Yeah, so in my life, the debt's gone up, debt's gone down, it's gone all around. And I got married at 21 and I eloped. I only knew my husband for 3 months. So we never had money conversations or we didn't have those big, huge conversations. We've been married for 18 years and we do manage money differently. So right now we got, because a lot of our, we're 21, we're young. I was graduating college. He graduated later. We had kids. He was going to school while having kids and a family. So yeah, debt goes up and down because of life situations. We're trying to handle children, school, work, and so forth. But now we're in a space that our incomes are very close. Like we both are doing well, and we've decided to separate our income. Because we've always, for 18 years, have shared everything. Like, we always had, a joint account, and just recently, and then we did have like our billing account, our spending account, and then our mortgage account. But it was always intertwined between the two of us. And just recently, now we just do our billing. Our own account is our own spending account, and then our our mortgage account is something separate. That has been so great because we do manage money differently. Long story short, sorry about that. But my question is, I just paid off all my credit card debt. But in order to in order to reach that was because I took these contracts, but I also pulled out. I had an IRA because the way I was looking at it, if I pull it out of my IRA, I know I was going to hear Jorge, and that was my question. If I could pay off, my debt, now I can start saving. And that's something that really helped me catch up and now focus on saving. With that, I was able to pay my credit card debt. Now I can take 6 months off from doing contracts because I've saved enough for the 6 following months that I'm going to be not working in a traditional, and everything that I make in my business goes back to my business. I was able to save for an emergency fund. And now my next step is investing in my retirement. So I don't know if that was the right path, but the only debt I have now is my house and my car. So what's the right formula? For me, that's been the most relief I've ever had, because now I feel like anything extra I can now save for my retirement. So what are your guys' suggestions?
I'll jump in there first. And first of all, I mean, there are certain fundamentals when you're building your, let's call it your financial house. But that being said, look, you said something key. You've never felt that, and I'm paraphrasing, that peace of mind of not having any of that debt. So, I mean, just congratulations. Just getting to the point where you can say, I don't owe anything to anyone, and yet you still got your mortgage. But I think that was a plus. Now, that being said, uh, normally I personally discourage people from cashing out of their retirement accounts to pay down debt. And the only reason for that is it, you get, if you're under the age of 59 and a half, you're going to pay taxes and a 10% penalty. So you're shaving 30% right off the top, give or take. And now that 30% plus that 30%, it's just gone, and it'll take a long time for the money to go back up there. Now, in your case, you eliminated your debt. Hey, congratulations! But traditionally, I discourage people from doing that, uh, especially if your if your investments, if your savings are averaging a certain rate of return. Uh, and you minimize that because you cash some out, well, it'll take a very long time for it to get back up there. Yeah, right now you can contribute more, but I would have preferred to set up a debt elimination strategy, maybe, which is one of the things that I want to talk about right now, to figure out how not to touch long term money and to use maybe the new income coming in to pay down the debt in a more efficient manner. So, I mean, one thing, congratulations. I mean, you eliminated all your debt. That is fantastic. Was it the right thing? Maybe for you it was, but I think that implementing some of the debt elimination strategies and options might have helped you be able to keep your retirement while still accelerate and reduce the amount of interest you would have paid on your debt. Susiana, what do you ladies feel about this?
Yeah, I think what you said is pretty spot on, Jorge, that in general people always say like you don't want to touch your retirement accounts because there are penalties. And so from the mathematical perspective, Carmen, we might look and be like, oh, did you end up saving more money or not? But I also believe in the emotional capital of paying off debt, even if it mathematically didn't make sense. And that's why there's so many different, and I'm sure, Jorge, we're going to get into this. Like, there's so many models for how to pay off debt. Like, for some people, psychological, like mathematically, oh, you should pay off the credit card with the most interest. But for other people, psychologically, they're going to pay the credit card with the least amount on it because then emotionally it's like, okay, it's like I'm going to do the snowball effect. So that's kind of what I think is that for you, Carmen, we don't know how the math adds up, but we know that emotionally it is adding up and it's empowering you in the same way that somebody who decides I'm going to pay off the credit card with the least amount on it, even though it's not the most interest, makes me feel empowered to then pay off everything else, even if ultimately I'm paying a little bit more. So that's what I wanted to offer. I think that's so awesome of you, Carmen. Congratulations.
Yeah, and I also took the hit up front because they give you that option. So I took the hit up front. I set aside for the taxes that I'm going to taken away because I took a lump sum. But the way I was doing the calculation in the math, it's a 30% interest later on, but I'm paying the 30%, 20%, 15% on these credit card bills that are not going anywhere. So I did take that to account too. So it was averaging out about the same. And so that's kind of where I was standing. I was like, well, I'm going to take the hit either up front or I'm going to take it in the back end. So I decided to take it in the front and be able to now actually save. But I mean, I don't know. This is, I could honestly tell you, I feel so much relief, and also it's interesting because I have been married for 18 years and my husband and I, we do manage money differently. And it's awesome too. Because I graduated, I went to school, I was making fairly decent money for a new graduate. But then we had a family. I'm getting my husband through school. And it was really nice that we're in a place that we can independently spend our money and our bills. We split our bills up. I've never been in that space before because we've always, like, I think Susie or Anna, I'm not sure who was talking about it, like how life happens and that credit card there is there for life, right? Because sometimes you just, life happens. We moved to Alaska, we came home, we, so much has happened in our lives that it was nice to, and you know what? Throughout all of this, I can honestly say our credit is really awesome. So we never, fortunately, got to that point that we couldn't pay it back, just and be able to keep our credit up. But yeah, I just thank you for letting me share the experience and also the recommendations, because I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I
Carmen, I just want to tell you something. Do not second guess yourself. You made the right decision for you. You've already said like it was a wash financially, and you are totally like, just have your own bag, because I don't want you to second guess yourself. I want you to be like, you know what? I looked at the money and I figured out it was a wash either way. So fuck it. I'm going to deal with this so I can feel empowered and liberated and start creating my nest egg. So you go, girl. Like, that is what I want you to get from this. That you made the
Correct.
thank
best fucking
you.
decision, and you should be totally proud of yourself. So thank you for
100%.
sharing.
100%. Emotional wins can be just as powerful as a short-term financial win if it empowers you to keep moving in the right direction. Start setting money aside, building up for your emergencies, investing now. Some people are a little hesitant when it comes to investing because they realize that they still have some debt in the back. So if it just empowered you, hey, Susie said it great. It was the right decision for you. Great. Now it's time to move on. Now, Anna, any thoughts?
Yeah, I really don't belong here because I'm a fucking train wreck. I've always been a train wreck. But you know what? I've always done whatever I wanted to do. So I'm actually here to make the people in the audience feel that there's hope because it's never too late. It's never too late. And luckily, we have people like you, Jorge, and you, Susie. I really don't know you, Susie, but I've heard Jorge enough, and Jorge is so nurturing. And there's so many things that people can learn, and you can get out of whatever the hole is that you're in. You can start investing, you can make up for lost time. It doesn't matter how old you are. There's always a remedy. As long as you're still breathing and waking up in the morning, and you're able-bodied, there's always a remedy. So don't beat yourself up. Again, I'm going to say it again, never beat yourself up. There are so many ways to have multiple streams of income. There are side hustles. There are good investments. There are people with the knowledge that Jorge and Susie have that will support you and not beat you up. So take heart, and whatever, Carmen had a way of doing it. She thought that that was the best way. And you know what? She's going to make it work. I have 100% confidence that Carmen is going to win because she's a winner. That's just the way it is. So buckle up, guys. It's a long ride and enjoy it.
Thank you, Anna. And so with that, I mean, to kind of recap what we've been talking about, I want to first of all thank everybody down in the audience for joining us. We're discussing this topic of debt management, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're doing it under the Amigos Club. So if you don't follow the club, make sure you hit the little green house and follow us for the month of April, which is Financial Awareness Month. If you have any question with regards to the topic that we're discussing today, definitely shoot it. Drop it in the chat or come up and share your debt story and how you tackled it, how you came above it. And with that, so lessons that we've learned so far based on the stories is, you got to make decisions. Sometimes you got to go with your gut, but still there are certain strategies that you can implement to tackle your debt. And Susie, you kind of mentioned that, like the debt snowball effect or debt stacking. There's a lot of strategies to be able to help somebody pay down their debt. Now, before doing that, there are two types of debt. There is revolving debt, and then there is fixed debt. Credit card debt is what we know, what is known as revolving debt. The interest compounds daily instead of monthly, which means that you can pay as you can pay much more interest because there's no fixed amount that you pay each month. Your debt can go on forever. So that is revolving debt, okay? And additionally, your interest rate could change at almost any time, and there's very little a consumer can do beyond paying off the entire balance at once. So that's revolving debt. Now, what is a fixed debt? For example, when you buy a house, normally you have a fixed rate. When you buy a car, when you get a car loan, that is a fixed interest. There are certain personal loans where your payment already includes the interest in it, and you know that in 5 years you're going to be debt free. Why? Because that's the term of the loan, or 30 years in the case of a mortgage. So those are fixed uh, interest debt, fixed debt. Revolving is like credit card, which can be very dangerous and can drag forever. So one of the strategies that people can use is debt snowball. And like Susie mentioned, some models, some strategies focus on you pay the one with the highest interest. I'm with Susie that I think that an emotional win is very important. So, as part of setting up a strategy using this debt snowball effect or that stacking effect, is trying to tackle the one with the lowest balance first. That way, you have that immediate, I got it. This is done. I beat this one. And now use that money that you were using to pay the minimum on that debt and add it to the minimum payment that you are paying on the second target debt. Now you have more money. You're sending now more than the minimum. All these strategies, the debt stacking, also known as the debt snowball, what you end up doing is, picture this: when a lot of people say, "Well, I'm sending more than the minimum to all my credit cards, and they don't move." Well, that's the wrong way to go about it. What we're gonna suggest you do is you send the minimum to all of them, and then add up all the extra money that you were sending, but spreading among all the credit cards. And now you're gonna add those dollars up and focus on one debt at a time until that debt is totally paid off. Now, everything you were sending to that debt, once it's paid off, you will add it to the minimum payment that you were sending to the second target date, and so on and so forth until you completely become debt free. And doing it that way, you're actually saving interest and you're saving yourself some time. So that is called the debt snowball effect. Susie, Anna, any other strategies that you might recommend to tackle the debt? Any other methods?
I have some good ones that I have done. Before you even start doing that, see if you could talk to all your credit card companies and see if they'll lower your interest rate,
Yes.
and play them against each other to find one. Because what I ended up doing is I ended up finding one that gave me like a full year zero APR, and it had like maybe a 3%, 2.5% or 3% transfer fee. And that, when I calculated the money, was way cheaper, even though they were going to charge me a transfer fee for my other cards. I went ahead and threw them all into that one, canceled all the other ones, and then paid off everything much faster because I now had a zero APR and I was only making one payment. So that's another thing you can do. But definitely, and if you have, like, say, healthcare debt, they will, you talk to, say, Duke Hospital, and you say, hey, I know I have this debt from this hospitalization, etc. I can't afford to pay that. What will you take instead? So you want to negotiate with your debtors to see if they'll lower the payments, or not the payments, lower the interest rate and lower the amount, because a lot of the time, particularly for healthcare, they're willing to take less. They would rather get something than nothing. So those are my tips.
So, and that's crazy because all of us who have credit cards or may have had credit cards at some point, we believe, well, it's in the contract. They'll never change my interest. And to that I say, well, have you tried? You never know. If you call and you call often and you ask them, I think especially because of the time of this time that we're in through COVID, I think like the credit card companies rather you send them some money than no money. So if you call and ask, hey, listen, I need help paying some of this. Can you give me like a short term, maybe 6 months to a year of a lower down rate? Uh, Ask around. They might have something to help you like Susie did, just roll some of that debt into one credit card at a lower interest that would save you money. So that's one great tip, Susie. Anna, any other tips that you've used in the past?
You know, I think I've made a lot of mistakes. Say, like, each time I get a car, I feel I have to pay it off. And as soon as I pay it off and I pimp it up, somebody hits me on I-95 and destroys it. You know, last year I had cancer and I paid all of my medical bills. And you know what? I could have had a payment plan, but I chose to move my money that way. I've made all the mistakes in the book, but the thing is that I never give up, and I set goals and I pay things off, and that's just the way I am. But and right now I don't want to have another car until I can pay it cash. I'm crazy that way, but if you guys have any insights on that, because you guys are much more sane than I am. I'm not. I'm really a loose cannon.
Can
I,
I
I,
give a
Go
little
ahead, please.
suggestion about the medical bills? My husband got in an accident right in between. He was on. There's this week or two, like if you're in the military, where you're getting active duty insurance, and then you have this 1 to 2 weeks where you have no insurance whatsoever, and then it goes to non-active duty insurance. Well, my husband, because he timed it that way, I'm just kidding, but he got in an accident in between that time, and we learned while we were there, there's most hospitals are nonprofit organizations, so they can't profit at the end of the year, have any profit whatsoever. And so they had this program, if you apply to it, that goes strictly, that extra money that they can't profit off to goes to paying bills within, certain people. So that's something that if you do have medical expenses, maybe it's worth checking into. It was just very fortunate the person that was there when he was in the emergency room, and we explained our situation. It was like our insurance is going to kick in 2 weeks. They went ahead and gave us a form, and they paid for his ambulance. They paid for his, I think they paid 80%, not the full amount, but they paid 80%, just like an insurance would, for the ambulance, for the emergency x-rays, all of that good stuff.
Very cool. That's okay. Thank you very much. So a little recap as far as the tips. So I just posted on the chat, but if you're looking to eliminate your debt a little bit more time efficiently, lower your interest payments over time, you may want to research the debt snowball or the debt stacking method. If you need help with that, definitely you can reach out to me. I can help you with a calculator to help you with that. But before you even do that, like Susie just suggested, make some calls. Call your debt, call your credit card companies, and ask if they're willing to help you, even if for a short period of time, so you can reduce the interest and you can tackle some of your debt a little bit faster. Another method that I know some people have successfully used in the past is, I already addressed a little bit the difference between a compounding interest or revolving debt and a fixed interest. So I know that we personally, when we were in debt, we went to a bank and they gave us a personal unsecured loan. So no collateral. It was just based on us, on our credit, and we got that loan, which was at a fixed interest, and we pretty much paid off a lot of the credit cards that we had. And that way we knew that we had one monthly payment, and we knew exactly, we had a debt elimination date. We knew when we were going to be done with that debt, because it was a fixed interest. So that saved us time, that saved us money. So the personal loans, personal unsecured loans, there are websites that offer them, there are banks that offer them. They are also another possible avenue. And one that we haven't mentioned is, well, right now we are at a time where most people have a ton of equity in their properties. And if you're lucky enough to be a homeowner, you may have a mortgage, but if you have a house that has a lot of equity, because we've seen that, I definitely know we've seen that in Florida and Texas, and you have some debt, well, guess what? Maybe if you have a good stable income, maybe researching the possibility of doing a refinance and consolidating all your debt into one new mortgage. That might also be another strategy that a lot of people use to be able to take control of that debt. What do you think about that, Susie or Ana? Any comments on those strategies?
That's what we did when the interest rates got really low on the house. We were able to roll in some of our debt into that. The other thing I was going to say is this is kind of more in response to Anna. When I was hearing you talk about like, oh, I want to be able to pay cash for everything. I want to, as soon as I, had my cancer bills come through, I wanted to pay them off instead of being on a payment plan. I want to address that because I do think that for some of us, there's like this feeling of like, oh my God, I cannot have any debt. I must get rid of it now. And I used to have that too. Um, and I don't, it's funny because I have a client who is also a first generation American, and she has that. Like, she just like, oh my God, the horror of feeling like she has debt. But what I think is that sometimes, like we've been saying, sometimes it's okay to be like, hey, if you're not going to charge me interest, I'll just do the payment plan. I'll give you an example for me that when we bought my car, um, I used to have a 20-year-old Honda Civic that finally died. It was a 1997 car, and this is 2017, and it was done. It was done. It was never gonna come back. And I was very much like, oh no, I don't want to have to buy a car. I didn't want to buy a new car because they depreciate when they come off the lot, but I knew I wanted a hatchback. I looked at all the hatchbacks, and guess what? Honda Civic had just come out the first year of a new hatchback. So there were no old ones. So I was like, shit, now I have to buy a new one. And I just was so against it because it's like, it's just bullshit that they screw you with that. But what happened is I did all my research. I found out all the different places that had the car I wanted. I played them against each other. I got a quote for a very low price from Charlotte, so it was like 22,500 for an EX. And I said, and that's got to be all of it, including taxes and everything, right? Then I got a quote from the Duke Credit Union for how much they were going to let me do. And we actually had enough money to pay for this in cash, but our interest with at that point the savings account ended up being more interest that I'm getting in savings than I am to pay for the car. They dropped me down to 1.5%, even though my other stuff was like 2.99 in savings. So we just took the freaking loan. And, like, why am I going to pay cash when it costs me less money to take the loan? And then once the interest
Opportunity
rate drops,
cost.
yeah. So then eventually, like 2 or 3 years in, when the things reversed, that's when we're like, okay, fuck it, let's pay it off. But I think that if we can change our attitude that debt is bad and I should not be owing anybody, you can really just play it like a very neutral thing. Like, hey, is it, if they're not going to charge me interest, I want to use this money for something else, let me do it. So I just kind of wanted to offer that because I think for all of us, we just kind of want to check in if we have a thought. And I think it's because I grew up very scared of debt that I used to be really scared of debt. And it's just as I became more acculturated to Anglo society and I married a white guy, it was like, oh, this is how you play the game. So I just kind of wanted to offer that.
Thank you so much, Susie. It's so important to just have a healthy perspective when it comes to money. Go ahead, Jorge.
Yeah, no, I was gonna agree with Susie that every situation is different, but yeah, when you compare interests, if you have an interest rate that you gotta pay on a loan, and that interest rate it's 2%, but you have an account invested somewhere that is averaging you 8%, does it really make sense to pay down the debt that you have at 2% when you have something else earning you at 8%? So it's on a case by case basis, but definitely it's something that you need to consider. Now, some people don't feel comfortable with debt and they rather pay it off. Hey, it's an emotional win. As long as you bounce back and start saving like crazy, great. But to also to the point of all debt being bad, I just wanted to mention what Danai dropped on the chat and what Susie second, which is the use of credit cards. if you use credit cards, as long as you pay the balance at the end of the month, that's not a bad thing. It's convenient. Plus, a lot of the credit cards give you points and cash back, and so as long as you use it and are able to pay the balance in its entirety at the end of the month, then you're taking advantage of the points and money back and all that from these financial institutions. But as long as you don't carry a balance, the minute that you start carrying a balance, that just means that you are probably subsidizing your lifestyle with credit, and that's not necessarily what you want to be doing if you want a solid financial future. So, anything that you want to share about that? Oh, before I did mention, I dropped in the chat. I know that some people, I mentioned the personal unsecured loans in the refis. Banks do offer unsecured loans to consumers if you have good credit, if you have the income, and they may be a little bit of a higher interest, but it's definitely much lower than what most people are paying on their credit cards. So if you have some debt that you need to tackle, that's definitely an option that you can consider as well.
Jorge, the one thing I was going to mention that hasn't been mentioned is, a lot of the tips that we've both mentioned, like being able to play things off each other and ask for for credit cards to drop things. It's all predicated on you having had a good relationship and so again, just the reminder that you always want to pay regularly whatever your debts are, like never miss a payment, not just for your FICO score, but really, part of the reason I was able to ask credit cards to lower my APR and things like that is that I had had a long, reliable relationship with them. And so they were willing to do that because they wanted to keep my business. So just wanted to make that point that a lot of the good snowballing that happens comes from regularly paying everything. So you establish that relationship with your debtor.
100%. And the other thing that I want to mention is uh, the mistake that some people make is, I know that I made it, and Susie, I know that you mentioned it as well, is, oh my God, I paid off these credit cards, snip, snip, let's cut them up, let's close the accounts. I removed that possibility of getting back in the hole. And sometimes the problem with that is you need to not cut up the cards, but cut up the habit, kind of fix that mindset and habit with debt. Because what happens is the negative effect of you closing down accounts is that it can have a tremendous negative impact on your credit score and your FICO. Because the length of your credit history is determined by how long you've had certain accounts open. So if I opened my credit card when I was in college, and to this date, man, that would have been over 20 years of credit history. But if I paid it off, and that was my only credit card, maybe I opened up one last year. If I close my account that I've had for 20 years and I just keep one for a year, that may totally change the way that companies see your credit history, because now you don't have that old account open. So sometimes closing down accounts is not always the best thing for your credit score, which leads to, if your FICO score gets affected, guess what that's going to cost you? A lot more in interest when you go and seek new debt, like a loan or a car loan or things like that, or even credit card. So just keep in mind that your credit goes really, really hand in hand with your debt management, with your debt elimination strategies. Just wanted to share that as well. All right. So with that, uh, we can do probably a quick recap of what we've been discussing. So what are some of the, as we're coming up almost to the top of the hour, Susie, any maybe one action step that you would recommend for people to take control of their debt? Anything that you would want people to walk away with, maybe an action step so they can go ahead and tackle that monster called debt?
Yeah, thanks, Jorge. I think I would say that if you have any kind of credit card debt, or that I would call all the credit card companies and see if they can lower your interest rate. and see if you can get a quick win that way, especially if you've had a long time relationship with them. It's possible they'll knock a couple of, points down. So that would be my number one action item.
I mean, a great idea. Anna, any action steps that you will want people to walk away with? Anything that you think that you're able to walk away with and implement yourself?
I would say choose one thing you're going to resolve and always do one thing at a time. After you did that one thing, do the next one. But don't take it on all at once.
And I would totally agree with that. But then again, I'm a man, I can multitask. So if I'm not doing just one thing, nothing gets done. So definitely a great tip. Focus on one thing at a time. Carmen, I wanted to thank you for coming up. I know that you've been sharing in these financial awareness rooms, and I want to thank you for your insight, your personal experience. Anything from today's conversation that you feel you got some value out of? Anything, any action steps that you would want people to walk away with?
It's possible that she was driving. Was she driving before?
I think so.
Buy a paleta.
Eso.
It'll make you happier. Forget about your debt.
That is true. Well, I guess for me, it's not all that is bad. There are multiple options, but take action. I mean, that would be my suggestion. Take action and get help. Sometimes we are our biggest obstacle, and when you enlist the help of somebody else, they might be able to point out some of the blind spots in your philosophy and your thought process and find a solution. Now, you are going to be the one who judges what's the best solution for you. But I think that getting help can really help, and taking action will be the difference between you being able to tackle your debt or staying in it and having your debt manage your life. So I want to, as we come up in to the almost to the top of the hour, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the Amigos Club for hosting these spaces. This is my tribe, and if you don't follow the club, definitely make sure you follow hit on the greenhouse on the top. If you're interested in any conversation about any topic, if it's related to money, definitely hit me up, and we can definitely facilitate the creation and moderation of these rooms. But if there's any other particular topic that you wish to have a discussion about, definitely reach out. Visit the amigos.club, and you can register to host a room, and some of us will reach out to you and help you with that creation. I want to thank Susie, Ana, and Carmen for participating, for your experience, for your insights, and this very, very important and scary conversation, which is debt. So thank you. Any last words before we close down the room in the next 2 minutes? Susie, Ana, Carmen, you have the floor.
Let's have a conversation about multiple sources of income.
Ooh, we can make that the last room of the month. I think that's a great topic for sure.
Let's do it, baby.
Susie, any other? I know that I said it before, but any last words?
Just, know that you can get out of this if you are in debt. And like you said, there's people who can help you. There's no shame in having debt, and lots of people have it. And if it's something that's bogging you down, get help. And we're here, with a financial advisor, or talk to people who will support you in taking the next steps. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Jorge.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, everybody. We're going to be closing down the room in the next few seconds. Thank you, everybody who's stuck around. Thank you for the comments on the chat, and we'll be seeing you on Saturday for the next room. The next room we're going to be discussing is retirement. Is it a do-it-yourself project or not? So definitely come back on Saturday, same time, and happy to see everybody. See you in the hallway. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Thursday.
Thank you, Jorge, for creating this safe space for everybody.
Ciao, everyone. Buen provecho.